Called the Seagull, Chapter 17, written and narrated by Flicky Harrison, edited by Alison Churchill. Lord Avalon tore off his elegant coat and pulled it tightly around Lucien, hiding his blood-stained shirt. Lucien's groans tore at Michelle's heart as she and Lord Avalon helped him up from the bed. "Is there a back way out of here?" she asked Suzanne. "Yes, but hurry, they are nearly here," urged Suzanne, a young face creased with worry. Between them they got Lucien down the back stairs. A door let out into a winding lane which led to some disused stables. The owners had long since fled. Suzanne slipped back to her room to hide the blood-stained coat and meet the soldiers. She would hopefully throw them off the scent. She gave Lucien one long, agonising parting look. "Take care of him," she said. At the rear of the stables, Michelle covered Lucien with straw. It reminded her of the last time they had been in hiding. "I'll stay with him while you get a carriage," she said to Lord Avalon. "If we are not here when you get back—" She held out her hands. "God bless you." Lord Avalon did not waste time arguing. He merely nodded and was gone. Michelle lay close to Lucien, a hand lying lightly across his chest in a protective gesture. He was almost unconscious. She wrinkled her nose at the smell of stale mouse droppings in the straw. Time seemed to tick by slowly. Every second seemed like an hour. Michelle thought of Suzanne, all alone and facing the soldiers. Could she brave it out? Would they hurt her? She heard feet tramping down the back road and froze. The footsteps seemed to take forever reaching the stables. She let out her breath as they continued down the lane. Lord Avalon returned with a hired carriage. They hastily dressed Lucien in the groom's livery. He totally passed out during the process, and they dragged him into the carriage. Michelle wanted to sit with his head cradled on her lap, but Lord Avalon made her sit up front with him. "The hotel proprietor would think it mighty odd for my sister to care for a groom," he said. Once back at the Hotel d'Anglais, Lord Avalon made a big fuss about having found his missing groom. He told the proprietor that his fool of a groom had got into a street brawl. They helped Lucien into the hotel. Lord Avalon announced he had news from England and had to leave within the hour. He asked for his account to be made up immediately. In as short a time as possible, they were ready to leave. "Fit to travel then, Golding?" said Avalon sharply. "Yes, sir, I am ready, sir." Lucien stumbled towards the cabriolet. Michelle moved forward to help him, but Lord Avalon firmly held her back. Lucien clambered painfully up onto the box. Lord Avalon hustled Michelle inside the carriage, giving her no time to protest. For the benefit of the cab driver, and to keep Lucien conscious, Lord Avalon continued to abuse him. He roundly accused him of drinking and brawling. Lucien clutched the sides of the cab, desperately trying not to slip back into unconsciousness. Away from the Hotel d'Anglais, Lord Avalon told the driver he wanted to go to the nearest hostelry, where he could hire a carriage, as he had a fancy to drive himself. They were soon in the hired carriage, with Lord Avalon at the reins, and Lucien tightly wedged beside him. Michelle rode inside. They reached the barricades. Michelle held her breath as their papers were examined. The guards on the ground heard Lord Avalon still moaning at his groom. One of them spat at his feet. "You filthy English aristo," he shouted. But they were allowed to pass. Lord Avalon pulled up once they were out of sight. They made Lucien as comfortable as possible inside the carriage. Michelle held him close to prevent his being jolted as they drove over the rough roads. His periods of lucidity became less and less. Lucien managed to tell her that his yacht, the Tern, would anchor in one of the coves along the Rouen coast that very night. He said it would only stay until morning, before moving on to the next rendezvous point. Lord Avalon realised this was a race against time, and drove at his rapid rate for some hours. Driving along the coast road, they suddenly rounded a bend and spotted a troop of soldiers up ahead. Lord Avalon pulled up hastily. Michelle called out, asking why they had stopped. She looked out of the window just as the soldiers, marching in front, disappeared from sight. Lord Avalon jumped down and looked around at the woodland on one side of the road. "What are we going to do? We can't go back," Michelle asked desperately. Lord Avalon pointed at the woods. "Through there. With any luck we'll overtake them and get back on the road." "The carriage can't go through there." "No, but the horses can," Lord Avalon said, beginning to draw them out of the shafts. "But Lucien—" "He can ride in front of me. We have no choice. We have to get to the coast in time for the yacht, or else—" They threaded their way carefully through the trees, keeping the road in sight. 1 hour slipped into 2, and still no sign of the soldiers. Lord Avalon turned in the saddle. "We must have overtaken them by now. We have to risk the road again. Time is against us." He indicated the dusk of evening, casting long shadows all around them. They made good time on the road. They could soon smell the brine of the sea. Lucian was by this time completely unconscious through lack of blood and pain. Lord Avalon stopped. "We will have to try and rouse Lansdowne, or we'll be spending all night looking for this cove." He pulled Lucian from the horse and lay him gently on the grass. Michel tried to give him some brandy. He spluttered, but his senses were clear. "Where are we?" he asked. "About half an hour's ride from the coast," replied Lord Avalon. Lucian tried to sit up, but the effort was too much, and he fell back, with Michel's arms cradling him. "I'm a sad trial to you," he said. "Nonsense," she said gently. "How do we get to the cove to meet the turn?" "East," he said. "We must go east. Past the Three Falcons, turn right down the coast road, and straight on until we come to a small church." He stopped, a bit of coughing taking away his words. "The cove is the next inlet along." They rode like the wind, following the coast until they saw the inn, then the church, and finally rode down to the beach. Picking their way cautiously, they went onto the sand dunes. Michel's heart was beating harder than ever. They stood gazing out to sea. "There she is," a sharp eye spotting the turn, riding the waves majestically. "I have never seen a finer sight," said Lord Avalon. "But how do we let them know we are here? I daren't yell." He waved as he spoke, but there was no response from the boat. He looked on the beach and back again. "Is Lansdowne conscious?" Michel shook her head. "What's that?" she asked, pointing along to the far end of the beach. Lord Avalon stood transfixed. "My God, it's the soldiers we passed on the road. We've got to get that boat's attention." He looked desperately at Lucian, who was totally oblivious, lying on the ground, partially hidden by the sand dunes. Michel suddenly gave a piercing cry that rent the air. Lord Avalon looked at her as if she had gone completely crazy. She called again. "It's the call of the Seagull," she said. "It's their signal." Within seconds the cry came back from across the water. They saw a small rowing boat being lowered over the side of the yacht. "The soldiers are getting nearer," said Michel. "They will see us soon." "I know," said Lord Avalon, biting his lip, as he watched the rowers straining against the waves. "Keep out of sight behind that rock with Lansdowne. We don't want to encourage them to hurry." She obeyed, peeping round the corner and praying the boat would reach them first. Time seemed to stand still as the two parties came closer and closer. Once the rowers were within a few yards of the shore, Lord Avalon said, "Run for the boat." He hauled Lucian upon his shoulders and staggered down the sand. Michel ran on ahead to warn the rowers. Willing hands relieved Lord Avalon of his burden. The boat pulled away just as the soldiers caught sight of them. The order to fire carried across the water. Michel flung herself on top of Lucian in the bottom of the boat. The sound of gunfire echoed and re-echoed all around. A scream of agony made Michel raise her head. One of the rowers was hit in the arm. "Down! Stay down!" Someone pushed her back into the bottom of the boat. She stayed motionless until they reached the side of the turn and out of range of the soldiers' guns. Michel climbed the slippery ladder, with Lord Avalon guiding her. Lucian was carried by one of the burly sailors, and then taken away by the first mate to have his injuries attended to. Michel leaned on the railings of the deck, watching the shores of France recede. For the second time she was leaving her native land for the safety of England.